Aloha, everyone. Jeremy Vaeni here, and I can only assume that you can hear me. Can I hear me? I can't hear me, but you can probably hear me. If you can't hear me, or if you can, let me know. Uh, this is my makeup show for the last try with Tom Cheetham. Um, a weird thing happened as we were talking about evil. My internet went out, and my wife in another building with a different internet provider, her internet also went out. So, uh, weird, right? Because Tom was saying, "Oh, Carol, your wife Carol should just be the producer of this." Well, it wouldn't have mattered because both the internets went out. And then when it came back on, if you remember, I couldn't get this thing to work properly. Everyone could see and hear me and Tom, and I could see and hear Tom, but Tom could not hear me, although he could see me, and that was problematic. And there didn't seem to be a way to figure that out, or at least not for my dumb brain. Someone says I can hear you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. So I kind of want to. I felt bad about that, and I wanted to do like a makeup here. So hopefully the gods will allow me to talk about evil for a minute without the internet going out. And it helped that I saw on the Facebook live stream, um, someone had said that they are a theosophist, which is interesting to me because Jiddu Krishnamurti comes out of theosophy. And that he believes in good and evil. He believes that evil does exist. It's the yin yang, you know, blah blah blah. So I kind of wanted to, I guess, parse out what I mean by whether or not evil exists. You know, the limitations, what the box is in which this thing we call evil exists, and also with that, in tandem with that, is what I mean when I'm talking about death, meaning the death of self, not obviously bodily death. We all know what that is. Um, and in there will be the perfume of transcendence. So we're gonna talk about that. Sound and video is good. Great. Thank you all. Um, so I'm gonna babble for a bit, and then I will look back at the this chat and see if anyone has any questions or comments or concerns or whatever. And my babble is this. Well, first, just as a point of interest, again, Jiddu Krishnamurti um, came out of theosophy. Theosophy was, you know, a rigmarole of East meets West meets everything. It was a smorgasbord of spiritual and mystical and occult stuff. Um, and um, you know, you could very well argue, in fact, you could probably just historically trace pretty much everything in the New Age back to theosophy. So everything that you've ever heard, from like, I don't know, chakras to other lives to astral planes to densities and frequencies, it all goes back to the theosophists. Um, and I don't know. I guess I'm not real clear. See, it's interesting to me why you would be a theosophist after Jiddu Krishnamurti comes, but it may just be that I'm wrong in thinking that he put a kibosh on theosophy per se because he was perhaps a specific sect, the Star of the East sect or something like that. But he was basically the project of theosophy as a whole, which was to um, find the vessel through which the Lord Maitreya would come. So the Theosophists believed in these masters who may have lived in the Himalayas. They may or may not have lived on an astral plane. That part is unclear to me. Like, were these real people in the world, Master Cthulhu and so on, or uh, were they astral plane people who had like ascended? Whatever that is, these are my limitations on what I know about theosophy. Um, Krishnamurti was supposed, this psychic higher up muckety muck in theosophy named Charles Leadbeater He's a psychic. He plucked Krishnamurti out of a crowd and said, "Oh, you're it. You're the vessel." And Krishnamurti's dad was a theosophist, so you know his dad was into it, I guess. And basically, they raised Krishnamurti to believe that he would be the vessel for the second coming of this Lord Maitreya character, who, according to the Theosophists, is the entity who comes, who has come incarnated many times before as various Buddhas, as Jesus, like pretty much anyone who's like a spiritual or religious leader or figure. They're like, that was Lord Maitreya, and Krishnamurti will be it next. And but to the outside world, Krishnamurti looked like he was mentally challenged. He was always sort of slack jawed, not that bright, I guess, introverted, um, and not really. If you've ever seen the show Preacher or read the comic book, eh, he was that Jesus, I guess. Uh, that's mean, but you know. But he grew into a fine, upstanding young man who wasn't just mentally challenged. He was the real deal, but part of being the real deal is being real about what it is that is not real, which kudos to him. Hats off for being brave. And basically, he did his big Sermon on the Mount speech, as I like to call it, where he disbanded the Order of the Star of the East. He said, "Truth is a pathless land. There is no path, not through me, not through anybody. Figure it out yourself." Um, so on and so forth. And he said, "I don't want followers. I don't want any of this crap. I'm not the Lord Maitreya. I'm out." And I think that was very confusing for a lot of people. That was, if he was not the real deal, that would be the only real thing he could say, right? Which is like, all of this is delusional or a lie. If he was the real deal, that would be all he could say, which is, "Oh, you want another savior figure to believe in. But I just had the big enlightenment experience, and I know that that's not what this is about. This is about all of us having that big so-called enlightenment experience. It's about all of us not putting your faith in someone, not following them around your entire life, listening to their words and gawking starry-eyed. You've got to do the work here." So either way you slice it, it's it's the only thing he could honestly say. Um, so it's interesting again to me to say like I'm a theosophist given the opportunity that you have to not be one. Unless you're a theosophist because like all of that exploration into spiritual realms and occult type stuff is just interesting to you. I guess that would be, but I mean this is a conversation for me to have with a theosophist. I don't want to just so, Mr. Theosophist, if you ever want to come talk to me about this, I would love your perspective on this. Because I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not trying to be like all negative Nelly on your belief system of like, why are you doing that? I just don't understand why you're doing that. But I'm open to persuasion. Um, so here we are. If you don't know why I'm bringing up all of the Krishnamurti stuff, it's because, as I think I said last week, might have come through this episode, and I've said it 8 million times and written about it. Reading Krishnamurti is what finally got me to see the root of the problem with me, or that is me. Like, I really understood what he was saying so deeply that the roots withered and died. I dissolved, and magic happened. So, so that's what we're sort of going to be talking about ish. But we're going to get there through this thing of evil because, again, what this person had said is, well, I still believe in evil, and I thought I was making it clear that evil is a thing, but just that it is a thing in the human psyche or in the human stream of consciousness. And maybe that's the part that trips people up because those words mean something different to different people. Like, that may mean to you that it's all in your head, that there's no such thing. And no, what I mean is like, um, the universe, like as we perceive it, as we are in it. Um, every animal has, or every organism has its own stream of consciousness. And in the human stream, it's pretty broad. It includes a lot of things. It's not just like survival and love. There's also like dead things roaming around in there, death realms and these spirit realms that we've built up. And, if you've ever done psilocybin, you've had quite the journey, haven't you? And if you've ever done any sort of deep prayer, you've maybe had contact with something you thought was holy or sacred, or if you've done a meditation and maybe it's brought you to the end result that it promised. And in some sense, these things are real enough, but they aren't truth. They are all aspects uh, of truth, but like more like covered over as facsimiles. They're more like facsimiles of the real than the real. Um, and so, in this facsimile world, which is the human headspace, the human consciousness, um, we have broken up versions of things. So, what am I trying to say? Like, if you think about, like, what is this oneness that people talk about? Truth, oneness. Well, that's one, isn't it? But this ultimate consciousness, which is one consciousness, which exists prior to and inclusive of all things, which is the hoity-toity way of saying we are all within this bubble of grand consciousness called oneness. It is us, and we are it. And the reason that is because uh, that consciousness is nothing. It's formless, but it is. But it exists. In so being, what is it being? It is being different than oneness. Oneness can't like formlessness can't be without being an opposite. In quotes, because it's not. I'm putting it in quotes because it's not, we're not divorced from, there's no creator creating us. We are included within. So formlessness in being is being forms. It's not just being a form, it's being shards of itself. It's broken up. It's being difference. That's what being is, allness, isness, these sorts of words that you hear non-dual types say. And one strand of that is us, and we have the ability uh to play in that, to sort of bring forth creatively other forms through imagination, invention, et cetera, artistry and all that, um storytelling, but and so but within that, it's very easy to get out of balance. It's very easy, like, as we know, part of what we are is this sense of self. And in the Western world, this sense of self is everything. It's this autonomous, individuated being. We're so individuated that we're now saying we don't need anybody or anything. Let's just kill off the world and we'll throw ourselves inside of an inanimate object called a computer. Right? Like this is where like the geniuses want to bring us, into trash world, at Mordor, as my wife says. Uh, so we have a problem here for us. Like when you say oneness is being all things, one of the things it's being is like craziness, right? Is so-called evil, is confusion. Like everything is represented, but do you have to be it? Do you have to be that? That's the question. Um, so but all of those things that I'm talking about, the craziness, the mental illness, the thinking that you're an autonomous being when really in natural balance, indigenously, if we had stuck with our indigenous roots and not become westernized Bible thumping people, no, life would not be perfect, but there would be an inner sense of balance in that we would most likely be less individuated and more about the all, more about family, and family would include animals and life and earth and so on. Um, so so that's a problem. But so within that um, stuff, content of consciousness, there is this thing evil. It's not the same thing necessarily as people doing bad things or bad people doing bad things. I mean, I'm sure it obviously can be that you know, psychos and stuff, dictators and stuff. But there's also just like, and here I'll just call out myself because I'm stealing from Krishnamurti, because he had talked about when you walk into a room and you can still feel the presence of like a hostility of someone who was there, and either they died or they were just super, he didn't say this part, but I mean, you've walked into a room, right? Maybe uh, that is supposedly haunted, or you just get the creeps, or the woods, or something. You just get the creeps, and it's sort of this perfume of someone or something that was there that was really hostile to life itself, kind of. But you can also get that from like charismatic people who are alive who enter and leave the room. It's like they leave this stink of themselves, right? And you can feel it for a little while. So there is something about that is also true. Um, and are there independent sort of trickster beings that archetypally or whatever, are sort of symbiotically connected with us, um, who can cloud your mind, influence you, sway you in various ways? Sure, let's add that to the mix. Why not? But that's all part of the so-called illusion, right? That's meaning the human stream of consciousness as we know it isn't something that we are forever destined to be in. There is transcendence from that to the consciousness that transcends and includes us. That oneness consciousness, the oneness per se, that is being all things, that oneness, we can talk about it as an idea, as we're talking about it now. You can have an experience of it through meeting someone who is alive that way, or meeting, or even having a visionary journey of some sort of spiritual being or something. But ultimately, we need to be that. The first person identity, the self, needs to be that. That is what a human being actually needs to be. Not stuck in this stream of consciousness. We need to step out of the stream. But to say that implies that you need to do something. But you don't need to, but to do anything is just another step in the stream. So it's just seeing the problem of this. If I explain it well enough, which I haven't done yet, but if I explain it well enough and it clicks with you, that might be the aha epiphany that stops you dead in your tracks, where the brain stops projecting you, and then the oneness consciousness, truth, may become you in your wake. Um, that's what we're talking about here. And that there's no evil. There's no in the self identity of that oneness, there is none of the, it's clarity. That oneness is clarity. So you are clear. So there's no room for confusion. And that's where the devil comes in, the room for confusion part. So no, ultimately, there is no evil, except in the illusions that we create by remaining ourselves in this world. Sure, on the pendulum swings back and forth between good and evil. So what's interesting too, I forgot this, was the that I wanted to address from the theosophist person who wrote, is he'd said, and he believes in good and evil, and he believes good will win in the end, or some words to that effect. Good will not win in the end. Neither will evil. It's always swinging back and forth. So there is no permanent place, no permanent fixture of an enlightened society or the dregs. It's always back and forth. And the idea that you can pick up and fight as a spirit warrior or something, not that he said this, but other people have said this, is part of the illusion. It's another self identity that makes you feel as though you've transcended, right? But it's still, you know, I'm not denying that there are shallows and depths to the stream, but they're still they're still problematic. They're still not stepping out of the stream. And we need to be out of the stream. Not because I think it's even harder to see the urgency of stepping out of the stream when you are deeper in it. When you are feeling like you're on the side of the good, when you feel like you're on the right track, and when synchronicities kick in to tell you you're on the right track. Oh, everything's going well. Oh, the universe itself seems to be aligning to guide you and tell you that you're on the right path. But I can guarantee you that if you were to right now switch paths to something, anything else, after a bunch of confusion and jumbled mess and not knowing where you are in the world and the universe not responding to you and feeling as though, oh, that was a mistake, slowly but surely you'll be getting those synchronicities again. It's as if the universe is reconfiguring around this new direction you've taken to tell you you're okay, you're on the right path again. I guarantee you that will happen. So you can't trust that synchronicities even are telling you uh, the truth in that sense. They're telling you that where you're walking right now, this is the best way, and you're doing it right. But that doesn't mean that you need to be there, right? So, but the universe won't tell you that part because the universe wants you in the universe because you are the universe and the universe is you. Physically, you are of the universe, right? And therefore, mentally, because what is consciousness coming from the brain? It's thought, brain cells, and the such. We don't like to think of ourselves this way, but that's kind of what we are. And until we aren't, until we transcend and include those brain cells. So when we're talking about that transcending and including, we're talking about the death of self. So what really are we saying the death of self is? It's the death of, or the disappearance of the contents of consciousness, right? So all this crap in the human stream, all this stuff that you are personally, and then unconsciously, and then, you know, however deep that goes, impersonally, unconsciously, collectively, I guess I should say, collective unconscious, from the personal to the collective, that's all the contents of consciousness. And psychology wants you to deal with, for instance, your own baggage one item at a time. But is there a way to see yourself truly as you are, where all of the contents all at once are gone and a transformation takes place, not through learning, not through years and years of therapy? And I'm not saying don't go to therapy. If you need therapy, go to therapy. Don't listen to me. I'm saying, but there is another thing here, which is a complete instantaneous transformation, which is seeing yourself so clearly that you dissolve. And again, there's no evil there because that the contents of evil exists within the contents of consciousness, of human consciousness. So I should probably say human consciousness, right? Because we don't say that like animals are evil, even though we see them do dick moves. Like I always like to talk about the time that I was sitting in Central Park on a lunch break from work, and I watched a goose fly in and dive bomb directly on top of a duck that was, was in the pond, and the duck went under and like popped up somewhere else and looked around like "Meh, meh, 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 meh." And it was like it was on purpose. It was just a dick move. So they do dick moves, but we don't say they're evil. But if like someone jumped out of a tree and landed on your lap, a total stranger, you know, you would be like, this is a mentally ill person or evil or something, like something cruel and unusual is going on here. But it's geese and ducks, so we're like, oh, that's hilarious. But anyway, so that's kind of that. I hope that makes sense. You are the contents of your consciousness. I mean, we like to think that we are different than our thoughts, but we are thoughts. We are thought constructs. Um, and with that, the emotional complexes that play out, right? So that's what we are when you talk about the self. And understanding that, if you're asking, is there, you know, is there anything that's not that? Is there is there truth that is not comprised of thought, right? So we know, we like to say, oh sure, and then we fall back on wisdom, which is other people may have had first person experiences as truth, or second person experiences of truth coming flowing through them as if almost channeling something. um, and then they write down or speak that brilliance, and we take it and run with it and go, yeah, of course we know. But that's not knowing, that's just repeating what someone else has said, and they may be full of it. But either way, whether they're full of truth or full of it, um, that's dead to you, except as a reminder that you're not alive with that. And so why aren't I alive with that? And so um, that's the question you have to put to yourself. Um, but the first order question is, is there something beyond thought, beyond the contents of either my personal or collective consciousness? How will you know? You can't obviously, as I just said this now in with those words, but I'll say it in these words, which is, you can't know with the contents of consciousness. You can't know through somebody telling you or something, reading something. Um, so you have to be that. If there is something beyond thought, you have to be that which is beyond thought. And since we're talking about formless awareness and beyond thought, I'm going to put it into another bunch of words, which is, we're talking about timelessness. I mean, ultimately, what we're talking about is the human being, which is of the universe, which is going through time. We know this, right? The body is going through time. This is not, that's not controversial, I hope. Um, what is controversial, I suppose, is saying that the mind does not need to be the mind of the body going through time. It can be timeless truth. Timeless truth can be the body mind. And I would say that because we can do that, we need to do, that's what we need to be doing. That is chewing out of the cocoon, pecking out of the egg, and flying. That's what it is. It's not it's not reading about other people who claim that they've flown. Um, or having visions of beings who are flying around who are going, come on out, this is great. Flutter, flutter, flutter. Like, that's all a great reminder or a wake up call, but the wake up call can't be toward them, right? It can't be toward their wisdom or toward their promises, and if they're flying around and there are beings doing this, right? If there are astral plane beings or whatever, then they know this too. They know that all of this is so totally difficult, because at all phases of this, of thinking about this, what you want to do as a self is be yourself. So even if you understand the necessity for the death of self, which is the cessation of the contents of consciousness, which is silence, even though you understand that, you want to translate it into, how can I be silent? How can I get rid of or quiet the mind, get rid of these contents of consciousness, these thoughts, which aren't me, And even if you understand that they are you, there's still going to be some trick you play to try to still be here in charge of it all, because that's how deeply against us the truth of us rubs. If not, we would all be doing it, and there would be no hole inside that we're filling with, crap, and ultimately um, substituting actual suicide and death for, the transcendent moment of death of self, which is what our society is doing, right? Like, look around. This is what we're doing. Um, every push toward authoritarianism is a push toward a sense of God or control, or, put your power into someone else. Um, and the being able to kill life on Earth and then go blast, the dream of blasting off to Mars or injecting your consciousness into something else is just you playing God, because you're not God alive. And I suppose if you're really, really rich, you think you should be. Like, the delusions and the narcissism and the all of that are the bizarro, evil, mentally ill, whatever word, version of transcendence, oneness, um, truth consciousness. I almost said God consciousness, but that is a loaded term. But that is what we're talking about. Like, the difference between the fake thing, which is a narcissism with money and therefore power, who can play act the part, which means the destruction, actually, not the creation of anything, but the destruction, even through their own creations. They're ultimately about war and pollution and destroying. Um, I mean, this is just what we do. Like, you don't even have to make a judgment call on all of that. It just is. It just is. Mentally ill minds do mentally ill things. That's where we are. Evil minds do evil things, however you want to put it. Um, and I don't want to. I don't want to make, mental illness and evil are the same thing. I'm just saying there are certain people where you don't know what the line is because you see both. You, like, the actions are completely evil, but you can also see the mental illness, and you can also see, like, oh, where they went wrong or their parents went wrong. So it's kind of hard. Sometimes it's hard to parse out the two in powerful people, I guess, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, does all of that make sense? Is that making sense for you, that, yeah, evil exists, but so do you, and neither of you are real? And yet here you are, real enough, right? Like, that's the rub, is like, when we talk about illusion, it's really easy in the matrixy way, or the even the new agey way of talking about it's all an illusion, man, you know uh when it's just talk, right? And when it's like just you supposing and imagining, and just, there doesn't even have to be a visual to what you're imagining. It can just feel that way, and that's enough, man. But when push comes to shove and you're like, okay, that means you're not real. Beyond the being like, yeah, that's right, man, I'm not. Like, no, really, you're not real. And my telling you that is completely meaningless to you. uh you have to actually sit and grapple with it, like, actually figure out if that's true and what that means. And if you're not real, is there something that is it out of time, therefore out of thought, something that we see indications of in our stream here but is not of the stream? um what say you? I mean, there are ways in which you can see that. Again, going back to Krishnamurti, he was fond of saying things like, if you look at a beautiful mountain, he would talk about beauty, because that would be a quality that is not of time. It feels like it's of time. If you look at a beautiful mountain or a beautiful person or something, you associate the beauty with them. But if, the mountain is destroyed, or the person dies, you will find beauty in other things. Whatever the next thing is that comes up may be beautiful. The next person may be beautiful. So this sense of beauty, this quality exists, whether or not the object of the quality exists. Therefore, the quality itself is timeless. Um, that sounds about right. Okay, I'm going to look at the stream here and see see if I got any Zen people yelling at me. Shut your face, Vaeni. How do I pull up my chat? Oh, okay. Here we are. Whoa, boy. Those bizarre rich folks thirsting for Mars. Yeah, thirsting for Mars. And I mean, we've already. It's not like it's funny because it's not as though we haven't said this 8 million times in conversations, in the media, online, to our friends. Someone had to have had this conversation with Elon, or he had to have seen it somewhere play out in the media, on Twitter, something of like the irony of completely destroying this place so that you can go to another already dead rock and terraform that into the Shangri-La Garden of Eden we've got going here. I mean, it's bizarre that you would do that. You can terraform Mars, but you can't just keep this going. Like, what's the problem? So there's something deeply wrong with you. And who, you think he's ever going to want to look at that? Um, Someone says, check out Peter Levenda's Unholy Alliance for info on the occult Nazi adopting theosophical ideas. It's funny, Peter Levenda is someone I might have even read Unholy Alliance. I've read one of Peter or two of Peter Levenda's books. And I remember talking to Nancy Burns, who used to run UFO Magazine back in the day, uh, about him. And she really liked him because she thought he was world building. I thought that was really interesting. I think I was asking her, what do you think about like the Charles Manson, CIA, blah, 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 because he was into that too. And she basically thought he was world building. And she really liked it, but that it doesn't like I think her thinking on Peter Levenda is that even to him, it doesn't matter whether all of these connections and threads of conspiracy are true. They just create it's a world building exercise, even for him, that like creates a feeling inside. It's almost like creating a tulpa of reality when you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like like if you world build enough and you sort of believe in it enough, it kind of almost develops a life of its own. And it almost like these rabbit, and then you get other people to go down these stupid rabbit holes, right? And they go crazy with it because it's got this false aliveness to it almost. Maybe that's evil. I don't know. No offense, Peter. Ooh. Um. Oh, good. I can make this bigger for my blind eyes. By the way, I'm thinking about getting cataracts removed from both of my eyes. Um, Let me know if I should not do that because bad things can happen. That's my big worry. Like, I've got two eyes. Am I going to really operate on both of them at once? That's what the doctor wants to do. And he's like, it's all nonchalant to him. So I don't really know what the odds are that I will end up having to like peel my eyelids from my eyeballs every day to put Visine in because something went haywire. If anyone knows, if you've ever had such a procedure, let me know how it went for you. It's just a side tangential thing. So someone says here, Christopher Rosing, also says, according to Dogen, am I saying that right? Teachings, good and evil are a part of duality. Yeah, that's what I just said. Okay. Our true nature is non-dual, non-conceptual, beyond birth and death, and beyond good and evil. Fair enough. I've wondered if it is possible to have good without evil, to balance out creation doesn't the exact opposite of anything need to be created? Um, no, I don't think you do need good and evil. Because again, look at the example of even animals or plants. They're alive. They're doing conscious things. Some of them are dicks, but do they need evil to live? Do they, to live a happy existence? Um, no. There danger. Obviously there's danger in the world, and they react defensively or with fear or running away or whatever it is, or murdering or whatever. But that's that's not evil, right, for them. Um, and I don't think so. I think when you're talking about it for humans, and we're talking about like, don't you need evil to know the good? No, because that good, that's all part of the illusion, right? That good is not really good. It's just what we've got. I mean, in the illusion, of course, you want to be good, right? Because the opposite of that, because we do have opposites in this, and the opposite of that is awful. So you don't want to be awful. But I'm talking about like when you step out of that stream, you know what that is. You know what all of that good evil is. Um, and so no. So in the stream, I mean, the stream is these polar opposites, right? So yeah, you're necessarily going to have that. In the illusion, you're going to have that. Um, but to take up sides for either of them, or to try to be the best you can be, and call it a life, that is not good enough. It's what we all do most of the time, but it's not. Stepping out is stepping out. And when you step out, you see, no, there is no growth there. Because again, good is not going to win, evil is not going to win. It's going back and forth. There's no real, we're not really evolving. We're not really learning after a certain point. It's just masturbatory. And that's kind of where we're living now until we destroy ourselves. Because again, I go back to the my old trite and tired examples of the egg or the cocoon. Like what happens when the bird doesn't peck out of the egg, or the pupa doesn't chew out of the cocoon? They die. And if someone comes and tries to help the bird out of the egg a little too much, the bird will die because it won't have learned how to, it won't have done it itself, won't have built up its little neck muscles or whatever it's doing. Um, so the bird has to do it on its own. And that's this metaphorically the situation we're in. And all the good and evil stuff is happening inside the egg. Outside the egg, we're not concerned with inner egg life anymore. Except to say to those people in the egg, like, dude, you got to see through this. I know that that's exhilarating, the good and the evil. Um, and it plays on the emotions, right? Like exhilarating doesn't always mean something good. I just mean like, you're wired, you can be in anxiety mode, you can be in anger mode, or you can try to find your peace and your balance in an angry world. Um, but if you can choose away from it, if you can decide, I'm done with this crap, then it was never real to begin with. Which is why someone like Krishnamurti talks about choiceless awareness, making the choiceless choice. Um, so we think that like good and evil are necessary to learn, and we think that free will is freedom, and we don't see that they're actually, no, they're the enslavement, they're the shackles, and these are tough words to deal with. They're strong language, but that's what it is. Um, and it's hard to talk to someone about that without them like in the good and evil thing. Like say you're in a prison and you move from solitary confinement into the general population. Well, that feels like freedom, right? That feels like you're a little less crazy. And then if you're someone who's allowed out in the yard, well, by God, then you can see the prison and you can see everyone who's in it, and you understand what they are, and you understand that you're freer. And you may mistake that for freedom until you turn around and realize, oh, wait, there's a fence there and some guards, and I can't get past that. Right? Like So what was the evolution there? What was the learning? The learning should be that you're still not free, but really what we do is we tend to ignore the guards on the wall and go, oh, look, I'm in the prison yard. What a breath of fresh air. I'm not in with all the musty smells and the gangs and stuff. So I must be free. I can touch earth. And that ain't it. So that ain't it. All right. Uh, uh, uh. I'm getting a real lesson in Buddhism here. So I just want to ask. So Christopher Rosing is saying clarity is a fundamental principle of Dogen. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. The three bodies of the Buddha are emptiness, clarity, and great bliss. So what? Like I would say, this is where I become the harsh trickster character, which is to like go back and say like, who cares what Buddha said? Like this is another trap. Buddha said this, Dogen says this, that sounds like this. These are all ways to keep us here. All of this stuff is in human consciousness. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a person who became Buddha or whatever and said all of these enlightening things because he was truth. It just means that now that he has said them, it's up to us to not live by those words or to not, for the rest of our adult lives, compare and contrast what other people are saying against the thing that we liked from what he said. Because those are the trap that keeps you here and complacent in thinking you're going somewhere. And like bodies of knowledge, as far as spirituality go, are garbage. Throw them out. It's whether you personally are living that or not. So how do you personally get there? And again, even as I'm saying that, I'm seeing the problems with language. You personally are the one who has to die, and you personally are the one who can't get anywhere. But it's just seeing that dilemma, seeing the dilemma of, well, really, what it is true meditation, which is watching what you're doing as you're doing it, examining why it is you're writing these things as you're writing them, even. Um, you know, and that's not a judgment. I mean, it can be anything. You could just be trying to relate. You could be trying to be helpful, giving information, whatever it is. But ultimately, why are you doing it for you? What are you getting out of writing these things? And just see whether or not it is keeping you stuck here in the illusion by talking about people who've perhaps seen past it or stepped out of it. I'm not going to step anywhere if I keep my legs bunched up. Let's see. I believe we are in a thought responsive universe and that synchronicities are generated by our intentions, expectations, and beliefs. I don't, maybe. I mean, is that what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out if I'm agreeing with you. I'm not sure what a thought responsive universe is. And are you saying that the universe responds to thought? I mean, I would agree with that, I guess. And that's the problem. Like, I would even say that the universe, as I've said 8 million times elsewhere, and I apologize if you've followed me and heard this all before, but uh, 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 yeah, I think that part of the deal with this whole transcendence thing, the reason it's so hard to forever be out of the game here, out of the illusion, is that the universe will allow you to um and it's you and the universe at the same time. So it's like when I say the universe, there's no like evil entity, oppressive entity called the universe, any more so than you are the oppressive entity keeping you here. It's the same thing. It's just a bigger expansion of that. It's just like when I say the universe, it's like it can come at you as if another entity impersonally doing something, but it really is you. at the same time. It's hard to make sense of that. But what I'm getting at here is that you can have moments of where sort of the veil lifts. Like maybe you see the beautiful mountain and you have that moment of that transcends the mountain where you see the beauty and you see the beauty of all things. Like all of a sudden you feel connected with nature in such a way that you realize we're all one, and you have the oneness experience on that level. And that level, of course, is within, that ain't out, but it's pretty good. And and it's a true epiphany, and maybe it allows something of truth to leak in, not as a first person experience, identity as that, but as, in another way. And then instead of you just cracking through the egg, it sort of puts the egg back around you and goes, okay, great. Now you're back. And why would the universe do that? Why would you do that? You would do that because you want to survive the situation where you're having a death of self into this great discovery of oneness. Uh, it's a sort of recoiling into yourself. The universe is doing it because this is where we have to sort of switch modes and say that the universe as an entity, even though we're experiencing time linearly from the non-dual perspective, everything is always already happening at once. So the universe is as a big breathing entity existing all at once, be a being that is time. How does it have new experiences? You may think it has new experiences through you inventing and imagining all that, but what I'm saying is that's already happening. You're just experiencing it step at a time, moment to moment to moment, but it's actually already all there. And the only real moment out of that is timelessness. So how does the universe actually expand? Through allowing timelessness into time, which it is doing with beings like us who have these moments of transcendence. And so we have timelessness. And then when we're not being timelessness, but we're just being us having a timeless experience, having a visit, but then coming back home, that new wisdom becomes, that living energy becomes wisdom, becomes knowledge, becomes something that becomes creative that we build off of, becomes sort of the underbelly of the universe. The universe pads itself out with imaginal realms and stuff, and that's how it adds novelty to itself through us. That's what it gets out of the deal. But it doesn't really want us to die. It wants to cast us out like a fishing lure and reel in the fish of enlightenment so that it can set up like fake enlightenment crap for you to go to and remain here. Like Buddha stuff, for instance. Or, again, psilocybin stuff, for instance. This feeling like you're traveling astrally somewhere and then you end up, whatever, wherever you end up. Uh, that's going nowhere fast. And do we need to do that? No, we don't need to do that. Are we going to do that? Probably that's what we're going to just keep doing. Um, so the question is there a way then to be that timelessness while also being the universe, being of time? I mean, that's the pecking out of the shell that has to happen. And when that happens, the big evil flying monkey that is the universe, when you pour water on that witch, reveals itself to be your dancing buddy. Did anybody see The Wiz? No? Okay. Um, let's see. Okay, now there's just more quotes from people. Um, a lot of, yeah, quotes from people and stuff. Okay. Um, Well, I'll tackle this last one from you, Christopher, which is stillness, silence, and spaciousness are three doors through which you can discover your own condition, your own true nature. They call it self-liberation because you are liberating any sense of self. Um, no. See, and this is where I think when the universe takes in the novelty, there's always got to be a trip up. And the trip up is you doing anything. There isn't because in other words, it's if it's going to create a carnival ride out of something interesting to keep you here out of truth, it's not going to create a door to truth for you to be that. So it's got to take these words and have them mean almost the same thing, almost truth, but not quite. And therefore you stay here thinking that this is truth. But like, so stillness, silence, and spaciousness. I don't know what you mean by spaciousness. Are three doors through which you can discover your own condition. Stillness and silence. Stillness is silence. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean. You mean by you being still? I mean, you being still is silence. And that silence, the ultimate silence, is formless awareness, is truth, is living. That silence is living energy, if you want to call it that. It is ultimate consciousness. So it's not you being silent to discover your own conditioning. When you understand your conditioning so deeply that you're no longer there, there be silence. And that silence is the aliveness prior to and inclusive of the universe. And now the first person aliveness of the body, shining through, speaking into the world. Um, so I would say don't concentrate on those things for self liberation. There is because you are liberating any sense of self. I'm not sure what liberating sense of self means. Um, you got to go. That's all it is. I mean, if that's Liberation Day, okay. But there's no you liberating you. There's no you being quiet, quieting the mind and going, I'm just going to sit here until that's not silence. Um, or these meditations that have you quiet the mind and watch thoughts drift by and you're not your thoughts and all. That's all a wrong step. You are thought. You are not someone watching thoughts. You can. It's a schizophrenia that we are. We're the thought that believes we're the thinker. The thinker, the feeler, the person here is a thought construct. You are those things that you're thinking and feeling um, moment to moment. That's you. Um, and so stillness, that silence is not you. So seeing the futility of seeking that which is not you, seeking silence, seeing the futility of it so deeply that the brain has no choice but to tilt the machine and shut you off because it realizes like, oh, right. Oh, I know who I am now. I'm the guy who's or the gal who's seeking that which is not me through me. That doesn't make sense. But in order to see that, you have to admit that or see that deeply that there are these there is truth. I was going to say these qualities, but really they're coming to us as separative qualities, but they're really oneness. There is truth that is not comprised of thought. There is silence, which is not comprised of thought, and that silence is alive. This livingness is not comprised of thought. Um, Therefore, it's not in you. It's not you. And you can't get to it. There's no traveling to it. There's no learning that will get you there. Once you deeply understand that, once the brain behind you deeply understands that, or if you come from heart, the heart deeply understands that, uh, you will be no more. But the other key here I should add is that the trap of me telling you this or us having this conversation is that then you want that. This is what I was trying to get at with Tom Cheetham. There's the thing of like, you have to have the desire or the want to seek truth. You have to want truth and then seek it in order to care about this conversation at all, in order to sit silently with yourself and ask yourself about it at all. You kind of have to have the desire to do that, right? But the problem is now, here's the truth. The truth is that seeker has to go. So now you've come to the point, and no one else is going to tell you this, right? Like they're all going to be like, oh yeah, great, go seek over here, Dogen or whatever. Go do these things. Go contemplate this way. And these way tell you about nothingness and they tell you about this consciousness and all that. And so you go do that. But then you become the person going and doing that. And so eventually you have to trip yourself up and be like, pull back, have a pullback moment of like, what am I doing here? Oh, wait, I get it. I am desire. I am that thought construct of desire in motion, seeking, and I have to, because I am that, I have to do that to care in the first place. But now that I see it, now that I see what I am, and I see that that cannot touch what I am seeking because it is not comprised of this, it is timelessness, it is formlessness, and I am form and time. I am a thought construct. Oh, I get it. I get it. Once you really get that, because I'm telling it to you so literally, giving it to you on a silver platter here, the problematic part with that is that you are hearing it. And so you may be like, your defense mechanism is, oh, I'm hearing it and it isn't transforming me, so therefore that's garbage. And it's like, no, you got to actually still sit with it with you deeper than that. You have to, it has to, it has to be urgent for you. It has to be, this is your life, man, right? Like, do something, do it. And what is it that you're doing? Nothing. Just seeing this, just seeing this. That's it. Um, oh, okay. So your tubing says, hey, Jeremy, I've been listening to your channel since last winter when I was living in Arizona. I heard an episode where someone was talking about a microscopic spiritual world. Blew my mind. It was a Ouija episode. Yeah. Yeah, that was Jeff Ritzman, me old broadcast partner on Paratopia. Rest in peace, Jeff. That blew our minds too. It certainly blew my mind when he said it. You're talking about if anyone's interested, yeah, the episode is called Echoes in a Yawning Chasm. So if you go to my YouTube channel and look up Echoes in a Yawning Chasm, you'll find it. It's basically Jeff was an experiencer of high strangeness, of, quote unquote alien abductions of beings that looked kind of like what Whitley Strieber saw, from the book Communion, for his whole life. And he remembered these outright. He didn't have hypnosis, and he had a very detailed, sharp memory that I don't have, and God bless him. And so he would recount these things. And, when we did Paratopia, at some point, sort of early on-ish, his experiences changed to a tall, shrouded being having sit-down chats with him. So no more was he like being abducted and it was like, what is going on? And this is weird, and just weird bits and pieces of things. This was like, all right, we're going to have a sit-down chat. And at one point he said, take dictation. Like, you can use this on Paratopia. Here we go. And told him sort of life, the universe, and everything from his perspective. I'm talking about him as though he's a real being. I don't know if he is, but assuming all, he was who he said he was or whatever, um, he basically said that he comes from a particle in our world. And he referenced Horton Hears a Who. And this got us into a lot of trouble because there were people who were like, well, the Planck length, you can't go smaller than the Planck length, as if we know anything about physics at all. What we know is what we know. And then what we also know is that tomorrow we're going to discover things that are make what we know today irrelevant. That's really what we know. But we forget that. We forget that part and just go, I know something. So yeah, so he claims that, you know, he comes from a particle within our universe, and um, that basically everything is a fractal. All these, there are a cajillion universes, and they're all fractals of each other. And what they're one of the projects his people are interested in is trying to find what was the original universe, because they still haven't found that yet. Yeah, it was all very interesting. And one thing that Jeff was real clear to say over and over again that people didn't, in general, latch onto was that it, to him, he wasn't sure whether what this being was saying was true or not, but he thought it might just be that it was not completely true, but a good sort of thought exercise, something new to play with, a new direction to look, and that maybe we would stumble upon the truth sort of that way, as opposed to looking for aliens in outer space or like interdimensional us from, you know, beyond next door. Uh, and I think he took it less literally than his critics of him wanted him to take it, so that they could criticize him and be like, "You're just doing lies. You're just lying and doing occult shit or something." I don't know what. Um, but and it's also interesting to me, as I said on a later show, you know, one of the things the guy told him that he could tell us all was that his people, who his people were. And Jeff didn't want to say it, neither did I, because it sounded so much like a contactee, like Valiant Thor or Viv from Venus or something. He said his people were called the Alad, and he said that a singularity was coming, for us, and that this was another thing they didn't know. He said for their people, a singularity happened and it was great, but they don't know how we're going to react, and so they're waiting to see that. So he didn't want to say the Alad part. I said this in a later episode. I don't know if you saw it, so I'll just tell you right now. Didn't say the Alad part because it sounds like Aladdin. It sounds like Allah. It sounds like, you know, it just has tones of other things that uh, make it sound cringe. Just say out loud to us. Like, that's like a contactee thing. Um, but he didn't want to say the singularity part because he didn't want to worry people, whatever that meant. Now, you know, now we think, you know, singularity as like when technology and humans merge, which seems hella likely at this point. But I was never sure, and he never explained if that was the singularity or if it was like, isn't a singularity also something to do with a black hole? So I don't know what singularity uh, he's talking about. Um, but anyway, again, hats off to Jeff. I don't think people understood. Those who thought that he was lying or whatever, delusional maybe, but I think people just thought, those who didn't believe him thought he was lying. I don't think anyone really thought he was delusional. But if he was lying, and I don't think he was at all, uh, certainly to have these parts of it that he's like, I ain't saying that out loud, um, I think speaks to the honesty. I don't think you lie about. Otherwise, that lie is just for me, right? And like, I'm going to believe you either way. So, because I'm your friend and I know your honesty, I've met your family and all that. So, like, you don't have to go that extra distance for me to be on board. Um, it just doesn't make sense. So, I think the being said what he said, and there's more to it, and you can go listen to that episode. Um, but ultimately, do I know that any of it is true? No, because as Jeff also was fond of saying, never trust an alien, meaning that there always seems to be this promise of something greater that ends up being bullshittery or just wrong or something. And that may be tricksterish or evil, but it may also be that we're looking at it the wrong way, that we're we are not to seek out the literal facts of the matter, but in those that it triggers something in, it triggers something for them to explore and, maybe grow with when we're talking about learning. But I think ultimately, I'll just pull back out of the Shroud Man, Echoes and Yawning Chasm stuff and tell you my spiel on this is that uh, the universe, much like it will do with the Enlightenment stuff, with the so-called alien stuff, will take that which is not of the universe and turn it into something, stories for us to benefit us with, or beings for us to interact with in visions, in dreams, in whatever, hauntings, even abductions, this sort of thing. It will create facsimiles, or it will create sort of puppets, that look like they're doing the thing of non-dual beings who are not stuck in our duality, not stuck in this universe, but beings who are. So, in other words, I'm saying I believe there are beings outside of our universe, intelligences, who are speaking to us. And then there's the universe running with that in a different way. And the only way to tell the difference is that the universe will, just with the spirit, as with the spiritual stuff, it's fractally the same here. It will bastardize it in such a way that it puts you on a journey. Whereas the non-dual people, the only message is wake up. The message isn't go explore, go on a hero's journey, figure this out, go down a rabbit hole, um, end up in a different archetypal pattern, living a wholly different life, but feeling better and growing a long beard and living in a cave somewhere, or whatever it is. It'll just be wake up. It's that simple. And so whether Jeff's guy here is a being outside the universe using one of the puppets that are lying around in the ether to speak to Jeff, uh, you know, about wake up, or if he's in the universe saying, yeah, you got to learn things. Um, I'm not sure, but um, I don't know. I don't know. Um, I guess I'd have to think about it some more, but I don't really want to right now. But. Someone says, college dropout says, the sixth patriarch said, I have no idea what the sixth patriarch is, but okay. The sixth patriarch said, quote, without thinking of good, without thinking of evil, at just such a time, what is your original face? Um, yeah. Christopher Rosing says, who cares what Krishnamurti says? Now he's pissed at me. The only reason I brought up clarity is because you did. Christopher, I'm sorry. Who cares what Krishnamurti says? Well, you don't have to. The reason I bring up Krishnamurti is um because I know that what happened to me, with me, uh the initial part of it, the dissolving into nothingness, was a direct result of reading Krishnamurti. And because that's true, I know that a lot of the words coming out of my mouth will sound exactly like Krishnamurti. And so I can't stand it when people steal from me. So I like to attribute to Krishnamurti, and also I think that um, he explains things probably better than I do, and he also wouldn't go as far as I do. Like, he would never talk about aliens and occult and whatever and all that, because those are all a trap. Like, he knows that's what people are interested in. Or back in his day, they wanted to talk about like Kundalini rising and masters and asanas and whatever. And he wasn't having it. Not because it wasn't real, but because the reality of them uh, is to be lived and understood after the fact of the transcendental moment. And any conversation about them before that is just another diversion. And um, of course, I indulge in them because at this point in history now, lo these many decades later, everyone thinks they're a goddamn master or something because they've read all this stuff about this shit. And so I have to engage with that language. Like, what choice do I have? I can't really get away with saying, we're not going to talk about the thing you're interested in because you have no attention span anymore, America. And you'll just go click on something else. But again, so who cares what Krishnamurti says? I would say that of anyone I've ever read or heard, he's the only one who purely states it purely. Um, and so I would say even stop listening to me and go listen to him. But he may not click with everybody. For some reason, this bunch of nonsense clicks with people. I don't know. But again, I just don't. I just want everyone to know that I am aware. Like, I'm not plagiarizing. In other words, I want people to know I'm not plagiarizing. Like, it's just that truth is truth. He said it. I'm saying it, and I may giggle more, but we're saying the same thing, and I want everyone to be aware that I'm aware of that. Okay. Uh, Who's this now? Oh, College Dropout says, real Zen story from China. A monk asked Yunman, what is Buddha? He replied, a dried up piece of shit. Um, there you go. And that's true in two ways. That's true in it's true in how useful that is for you to know the answer to, and it's also actually true, you know. Uh One consciousness transcending including all, including shit. Um yes, the universe responds to thought, says Christopher Rosing. Okay, thank you. Um He says, we're on the same page. I can't explain this in chat, but we're talking about the same thing. Okay. No, yeah, no, I get that. If you're talking about the universe. Okay, and I think that's everything, maybe? I don't see anyone else. Oh, wait. Geez. Um, why won't this thing open for me? For some reason, you're in the thing that I'm looking at, your sentence is getting cut off. So I'm gonna squint at this thing instead. Absolute silence, stillness, from which all sounds, movements, including thoughts, arise, abide, and then dissolve. Then you realize self is karmically generated, uh, our habits. I think there might be a misspelling there, but okay. Or a missing word or something. So Christopher Rosing says, absolute silence, stillness, from which all sounds, movements, including thoughts. Yeah. So absolute silence, from which all arises, abide, and then dissolve. But again, do you see, like, that's just, what has that done for you? I guess that's the question. Knowing that and saying that, what has that done for you? Have you become that silence? Are you that silence right now? Like, to me, that's the point. Um, like, I don't need anyone to put me in different words, right? Like you don't need to, like, if you were doing this chat, I guess I never really thought about it this way before, but this is kind of, it's like Buddha-splaining what I'm saying or something, you know? Like I'm saying words, and then I got people who are typing the closest association, like, what you're saying is this. And it's like, well, what I'm saying is what I'm saying. Why aren't you just listening to what I'm saying? Even if it is that, the great, okay, then you just put that in other words. Like, I don't get it. Like, why are you, but what I'm saying is, like, I do know why you're doing that. Do you? It's to avoid it. It's to avoid actually the actuality of what's being said, either by me or in what you're quoting. Um, because that's to actually have to deal with what's being said is the death of self. To no longer be talking about the death of self, right? Um, but let's go with what you're saying. Absolute silence, stillness, from which all sounds, movements, including thoughts, arise, abide, and then dissolve. Then you realize self is karmically generated. And I don't know what R habits is. I think that R is a typo or something. Um, but the idea that, like, why is that better than what I've said? Like, why is that like, that's more steps than you need, right? Like, this to me is another, to me, it confirms that this is what the universe does, man. You know, whoever said this, let's go with a Buddha or something. Um, was it bastardized in some way? Was it a game of telephone where, like, a couple of words were, or did he have followers who tried to emulate his experiences and they were brought into the universe's bastardization version of truth, where something like this would become the epiphany? Because um, I guess the things that I have problems with are arise, abide, and then dissolve. Um, I think that that too is the illusion. I mean, you're talking about living and dying. You're talking, but from the point of view of nowness, it's always already happened. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that is what this is saying. In absolute silence, I mean, I guess if thoughts are arising, abiding, and then dissolving um, perpetually, uh, so that really there's no real dissolving and there's no real arising. It's just it's a picture of that happening. You can see it. Um, to that extent, okay. So if you then you realize self is karmically generated. I don't know that self is karmically generated. Um, but then people mean different things by karma too. So, maybe that's a longer discussion. But the self isn't karmically generated in the way that I'm talking about it. Like, the way I talk about self is generally, as you know, westernized mind, which I tend to rightly or wrongly say brain people who are all up in their brain space, believing I am an individual, I am in control. And then there's heart people who come from heart, although other indigenous cultures, people from other cultures who are not First Nations, but like Hawaii, I think the soul comes from, I can't remember if it's the liver or the kidney, but like that's the seat of the soul. Like there are other organs, but just for brevity, I narrow it down to like headspace people and heart people because that gets to like me, I am the center of everything versus we, nature, the interconnecting web of life. Um, and those are roughly the two selves that I talk about. Um, and can they be karmically influenced or something, come out a certain way? I guess I can't really wholly say no to that simply because I had the experience in childhood of reading a Jesus prayer and meaning it and feeling absolved of everything. And later figuring out that, oh, Jesus had nothing to do with that. It's just the being honest, as I've been talking about this whole time, the moment of honesty with yourself, of like giving up. The trick of Jesus, the trick of anything that's within the stream of consciousness is giving yourself over. You don't give up for the sake of giving up. You give over because you've been told if you give over, there will be this whatever relief, this epiphany, this, and now you attribute it to the religious figure. Um, so thankfully I didn't get caught up in that part of it. But I did have the genuine like gut punch and rolling out full bodied feeling that actually made me take a knee on my way to getting the laundry after reading this prayer, of just absolute bliss, and like it felt like I had been cleared out of all of my so-called sins or karma or whatever, and which didn't even make much sense to me at the time because I was a kid, and like what could I really have done? So you would say like past lives, or if you don't want to go that route, you could say just like whatever's built up in your DNA from your family, your ancestors who passed on their crap to you, maybe reincarnation in that sense, or karma in that sense is burned away. Definitely had that experience. So but I feel like those things, were they not burned away, wouldn't predict me. They would be influences, just like anything else. They would be constantly vying for my attention, as they are in all of us. You know what I mean? Um, so the self is the self, and whatever society you're in is, you know, where you're going to be configured, I think. Um, and I think that like the nature cultures, the indigenous peoples, the First Nations peoples, and so forth, whatever word we want to use, they are in natural balance, coming from heart. And so when I had the moment of the death of brain self and the revelation of heart self, that to me felt like enlightenment, but it was not. I've explained this 8 million times too, right? That was not it. I thought it was it at the time. I would have sworn that was it because it's blissful, it's nirvana, it's interconnecting, it's the oneness nature of all things, it's understanding that we're all in this together. The people on the subway card, next to me in New York, wrapped up in their own mind space with their own problems. Their problems are my problems. We're all suffering together. It is that Buddha thing of suffering is the baseline of everything. And we're all in it together, and we're all doing it to each other generation to generation because we're all confused. And if we just had clarity like this, we would understand. Um, but then, you meet indigenous people and you realize, oh, they don't have to go through this. They never built up this false sense of self. They're already in heart. And but then the other way, that that's not so-called enlightenment. Although what is enlightenment really? It's just the healthiest, wholest thing you can be. So in that sense, I was healthier and therefore more enlightened, I guess, coming from a healthier space. Um, but I digress. It was sitting on the couch reading Krishnamurti and realizing, as that new heart guy, and as the guy who understands Krishnamurti, and as a guy who has truth coming to him as wisdom, it's just coming to me spontaneously now. That never would I would never have cared about this before, but now it just happens. As that guy, I realized, oh God, I'm that guy. I'm still here. Like I realized, why am I still sitting on a couch reading Krishnamurti? And this is what I'm trying to get through to you. Why are you typing Buddha stuff? It's not because I'm trying to be confrontational and make you angry. It's because that's me. I see me in you. I see we're the same, right? And I had this moment of like, oh God, I'm that guy. And in that moment, the guy is gone. In that moment is nothingness. And then everything else that happened. Nothingness becomes thingness again. This time featuring Kundalini. Um, so yeah. So boy, that was a real travel. That was a distance to travel from like karma, the karma self. But oh, right. So the point is like it doesn't really matter how we see the self or what the building blocks are in a certain sense, because it's just how do we understand the necessity? Do we care enough to understand ourselves and to understand um, the necessity of uprooting ourselves, and that actually seeing that we're still here and seeing the necessity of it is the uprooting it. So you don't have to deal with all your bad karma and all that. Just as you don't need to go to psychotherapy forever and ever and ever, one step at a time. We don't need to do things one step at a time, I guess I don't know. There's my takeaway. All right, I have been babbling on now forever, I think. Wow, this is longer than the last one. No technical difficulties here. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening to this. I think I got to everybody. Buddha's a dry piece of shit. Got that, said that. Yes, thank you. Okay, that's everything. Thank you again for listening. I hope something in here was helpful. And if you find what I'm saying angering, and why bring up Krishnamurti? Well, here's another reason to bring up Krishnamurti, and I've said this a gajillion times too. I found Krishnamurti angering the same, maybe the same way that you may find me angering. I thought when I first read his books, I thought he was nuts, but because geniuses thought he was a genius, I thought I had to be wrong about him, and I wanted to know why geniuses thought he was right. So I kept reading him until I finally understood, until it finally clicked, like, oh, okay. And in that clicking, I realized that what was angering me was that reading him is a challenge to who I am. I mean, talking about the death of self, we can put that in the abstract and say death of self. That means me. I'm talking about you, right? Like you got to go while the body remains alive. You got to go, and that is an affront, especially I would think, for people who are well educated and well versed and have spent their life ensconced in literature that portends to talk about these things: silence and, nothingness and non-duality. I would think that it is easier to not know a damn thing about it, to let go, to understand the need to let go for the sake of letting go, not because someone told you to let go, but because that's the only move the brain can make. I would think that to not have those references to run to and to glom onto and to repeat, to say, look, I get it. That's the brain saying, I get it. I'm with you. We're on the same page, so that you never have to dissolve and the page not be there anymore. You see? And for me to say that out loud is confrontational, or is perceived confrontationally, because it is anti-you, and you're the one who thinks you get it. You see the problem? But it's not. I mean, just pull back and see the whole thing. See what your role in that is. See, like, that's it. If you can get that, if you can see that, there's a big aha moment there, and it may be the biggest aha moment you will ever need. All right. Thanks everyone for playing. We will see you next time, which will probably be at the end of May, with Tom Cheetham. We will try this once again. Before he had said maybe let's move to Substack, but I don't want to move to Substack, and I know that there was a power outage or something that happened that killed both internet systems. So hopefully that won't happen next time. We're going to try it again. All right. Aloha. See you later.